very warm welcome to Bharata First. You're watching Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. Since you're here, let me ask you, have you liked the video and subscribed to Bharata First? If no, then please do so now. Do subscribe to our newsletter as well to get some incisive information. And how can I not tell you about the Bharata First Knowledge Center, our big success story? It is your one-stop destination for all your competitive exams needs. We now have 26 amazing courses all put together to help you in your competitive exams and also make you better Bharatiyas. Live classes for the second phase will begin from next week. Do ensure that you register now and participate in the interactive sessions. Go to kc.bharatafirst.com for more details. Many candidates who cleared UPSC CSE this year have thanked Bharata First and the Knowledge Center for playing a big part in their success. So don't be left behind and don't regret later. Register now. All this information along with some must-see recommendations are in the description of the video. Please go through it. And now on to the discussion. Many Indian states have invited Tesla to set up shop days after its billionaire founder Elon Musk said that the electric car maker is still facing a lot of challenges with the federal or the central government. Still working through a lot of challenges with the government, Musk said in a post on Twitter on January 13th, responding to a request for an update on the company's much anticipated launch in the country. It has been almost a year since Tesla established an office in Bengaluru. The Karnataka government has been in talks with the US firm, but its entry into India depends on the central government. Although India wants Tesla to build a factory in the country, Musk wants import duties to be slashed so that his firm can first establish a market locally. Meanwhile, other states like Maharashtra, Telangana, West Bengal, Punjab, and Tamil Nadu have offered space and attractive incentives so that Tesla invests in their respective regions, which not just promises jobs, but also bragging rights and a platform to use it to attract more brands. In this edition of Big Picture, we will analyze what are Tesla's challenges in India and why are states trying to woo Elon Musk. Joining me on the program today are Dr. Ajay, former Commerce and Industry Secretary and economist, and Jayant Das Gupta, former Secretary, Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister of India and former Ambassador of India at the WTO. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on this edition of Big Picture. So let me start the program with you first. How would you look at this entire Tesla saga? I mean, I'm calling it saga because of lack of a better word, but I think that's what it is. Ever since Elon Musk has tweeted a couple of days ago, we seem to have gone into a frenzy with regards to what we need to do with Tesla and Elon Musk.
I think it is first what to do with Elon Musk more than Tesla, because his is a personality larger than the product which he makes. And he does have a huge following around the world. He's able to, as somebody had commented, he's able to move the youth, he's able to move the markets, he's able to also move the politicians. It was in that hope that this saga in India seems to have started with our major domo, the Prime Minister, saying there is a kind of, we can't have him sleep with both China as well as with India. And his commenting in response to a tweet by the Telangana minister saying that, I think it started with the Telangana minister, he's saying that he's still working with the challenges which the Indian system imposed or has posed on his setting up a base in India. If you would recall, Frank, India was running on to the extent that in September 2015, in a visit to the United States, our Prime Minister found time to visit his plant. And subsequently, he's met the Indian Prime Minister more than once. And the last meeting when he was probably, that's about 6 months ago or 5 months ago, he was in India. He was told that the import duties in India cannot be varied to suit the requirements of individuals. So we have a policy under which we impose 60% duties on cars costing about 30 lakh rupees, that's $40,000. And above that, we have 100% duty. Mr. Musk's product, the Tesla car, it falls in that category, that's the luxury one. So on the components which he's going to be importing, and actually it is more than components, he's planning to import the full CKD, the complete in a knockdown stage, assemble it here, make the body, and ship it off wherever he wants. That it's going to be 100% duty. Certainly the other passenger car manufacturers in India, whether it's BMW, Mercedes, or others, have also talked about the higher duties, but no one really had made it a precondition for setting up a plant here. Here is this gentleman who had already come and signed up something in Bangalore way back to set up a plant in that state. That didn't take off for a variety of reasons, and nothing to do with India, but with him is a different matter. And right now he's talking of imposing a condition, saying if you guys bring the duty down to 40%, then I'll look at India. And the so-called wooing by the 5 opposition ruled states, and all of them incidentally happen to be ruled by opposition parties, each one offering him somebody saying good infrastructure, another party saying single window, etc. All that is, I think, of less relevance to him than the issue of import duty, and that is where it stands today.
Absolutely. Let me take this particular point forward with you, Mr. Dasgupta. The states trying to move Elon Musk. The latest state to join the bandwagon now is Karnataka. And, despite being bitten in the past, Karnataka wants to woo Tesla for some reason. And if you look at some of the other states as well, like pointed out Mr. Dua, West Bengal, Telangana, and the other opposition states, it looks a bit fishy or absurd, because West Bengal has got a history of, not allowing big industries to be set up. We remember the infamous Tata and the Nano in West Bengal. So where is all this going, and how would you look at this?
Well, 5 states have so far made overtures to Elon Musk: Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Karnataka, Maharashtra is one of them, and West Bengal.
And
Punjab as well. Now 6.
And upon Maharashtra, the 2 ministers who have sent messages to him from West Bengal and Telangana are not even in charge of commerce and industry. They are probably in charge of minority affairs or something. So one has to take all these facts into account. And basically, Elon Musk is looking at, as Dr. Dua has mentioned, it is about bringing in everything from abroad and possibly assembling it here and then exporting it out of here, and also selling it in India. People who would like to have an fully electric car. Now, Musk's car, if it comes in at the current import duties, will cost upwards of 60 lakhs. That is the minimum at which this Model S will sell. And then it goes on to 70 lakhs and 1.5 crores, etc. So it is going to be prohibitive, and it is going to compete with much more comfortable cars like possibly Mercedes-Benz and BMWs and so on in that segment. So Elon Musk is interested, and he's holding out this promise that he will eventually set up a manufacturing base in India, provided he's allowed to bring in at 40% duty or even lower. And he sets up a manufacturing base where assembly will take place in the first phase. And Elon Musk, having gone to China, is dangling this carrot in front of India. As far as the states are concerned, if it is going to be an assembly unit, not much land is also required. Of course, electricity will be one of the considerations, but in most of the states, we don't have a problem with supplying electricity. So these, I think, are trying to show to their citizens, their electors, that they are concerned about unemployment. They are concerned that new industries are not coming in or being set up. And they are very actively trying to woo a very large foreign investor who can come in with money and can provide a lot of employment. I think the message is quite clear on that count.
Absolutely. Mr. Dua, just, taking this particular aspect forward, is this the kind of business module that we want to avoid at the end of the day? Because we don't want a big company coming to India just to assemble and sell their products here. We understand that there is a huge market in this country, and that's something that is an asset for us. So is this something that we want to avoid in the long run?
You raised a very important issue about what's called value added. How much of additionality would take place in India? And our interest on the basis of or from the point of view of sustained employment creation, sustained utilization of our raw materials, etc., does require that the value added be high. That's the principle which we are following in the PLI incentive scheme for 15 industries, which has been extended, saying, what are you going to be doing in India? Industry by industry, the government has laid down the norms, and also industry-specific performance criteria have been laid down. So certainly, I think the so-called screwdriver technology of the 80s, when television sets were made in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and brought to India only to be sold, meant putting the label of a company and screwing up the body on it. A screwdriver technology, as we used to call it. That's not the way what we are looking at. But Frank, pardon my going back to an earlier issue about how serious is Mr. Elon Musk about India. I think he is bargaining, not only with India, but with China and maybe possibly some other candidate in his mind. He's a businessman, he's not going to put all his cards on the table. I say this from 2 points of view. One, as yet the ecosystem in India, even if the duties are lowered, doesn't quite exist for EVs. What does the ecosystem require? One, certainly all this manufacturing facilities, etc. But more important, to support it, you need a charging infrastructure. Today, you have just 1,050 public charging facilities in this entire vast mass of India, which probably in the US, many cities, large cities, would have provided themselves. That's number one. Number two, the question is the facilities about registration, etc. in India is all that is saying is it's not free of registration like many other countries have done, but concessional registrations, longer period registrations. And finally, I come to the point, and I would like to put it in the ecosystem, that what is the affordability of Mr. Elon Musk's car here? The Indian EV market, the full market, the automobile market itself, and in which we sold 2.3 million units last year. The number of cars which will fall in this category of $30,000, and Elon Musk's cheapest model, as Jayant mentioned, is about $44,000. There, the sale is 40,000 cars, out of 2.2 million, which is roughly 2%. But every one of the cars of Mr. Musk will fall in that category, where today 2% of the normal ICE models are selling. Whereas in China, the number of cars sold of Elon Musk itself is 2.5 million. Say, where is 40,000 and where is 2.5 million? These are, I'm giving approximate figures just to indicate it may be a few thousand plus minus in terms of China, but it's a huge market. He's not going to be leaving China so easily. And so we are very clear, and I think the Prime Minister put it very succinctly, that it is, in a way, you're going to be helping China. We lower the duties. Mr. Musk will probably bring the budget model here in course of time, as and when he develops one. Till then, we will be importing China-made cars into India at a concessional duty.
Absolutely.
And if you would recall, one of the success stories post-liberalized 1991 liberalization in India is the automobile industry. We are an exporter in automobiles, a net exporter in automobiles rather than an importer. So those kind of things we have to keep in mind when we look at his request. And these are, as Mr. Dasgupta very elaborately said, the opposition states are just trying to score brownie points. None of them has a role to play in determining the import-export duties.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They can provide some amount of land, but land, as was mentioned, right now the requirement is not huge. Infrastructure he is going to create. He is not going to depend upon the erratic Indian power supply. Most people do that, and that's a part of the capital cost which is admissible from the taxation point of views, etc. So I think the gentleman will have to wait, or should be made to wait, rather than our jumping at, wooing him here.
Absolutely. Mr. Dasgupta, let me broaden the scope of the discussion and bring in another aspect. Yes, for the time being, of course, Elon Musk needs to wait, and we have to make him wait, is what is categorically understood in this discussion. But broadening the scope of the discussion, leaving Elon Musk aside, what does all of this mean for ease of doing business in India? Is that improving? What needs to be done?
I think on the World Bank, of course, has now stopped after the controversy about manipulation of in the index. But as far as ease of doing business is concerned, the best index for that would be to ask our own investors in the manufacturing sector or in the trading sector as to what is the problem that they are facing, which could be solved through intervention either at the state government level or the central government level. And FICCI and CII, ASSOCHAM, etc., have been doing this exercise for quite some time now. One of the major problems that is being faced by investors, including foreign investors, is about land. It is still not clear. The Land Acquisition Act, I think, is currently a work in progress, because the way it is structured at the moment, it makes it extremely difficult for even a domestic investor to acquire large tracts of land for investment. And foreign investors, of course, would face much more problems because they don't know the lay of the land in India. So that is one of the issues. The second issue is about electricity, which Dr. Dua just mentioned, about the quality of power that is supplied. We may be self-sufficient in power now in most states, but the quality of power leaves a lot to be desired. The third issue is about commercial disputes, and this figures always quite high on the list of foreign investors as well as domestic investors, that if a company gets into a dispute with a supplier or a partner, it takes ages for it to get resolved. And normal period is approximately 10 years or so, because various courts will come in and arbitration may also be invoked. So this needs to be sorted out. And the last point is, though we have now got a new labor code, etc., 4 labor codes, there is still a problem about labor. And that is one of the reasons why even in the organized sector, a lot of people are getting employed as contract labor rather than as regular employees, which is not the case in other countries, especially in the Western world and even in China. So this is one of the problems which probably will have to be tweaked, and the point where the shoe really pinches will have to be found out and solved. So these are some of the points. The last issue is about environmental clearance. Environmental impact assessment and environmental clearance finally to go ahead is a kind of a black box, because one doesn't really know when the approval will come, because there are no timelines. So absence of a timeline is what deters investors, especially from outside, to come into India and open their purse strings and invest in the manufacturing sector. A lot of investments are coming in, but if you look at the investments, they are mostly in equities or in service-oriented industries like e-commerce, like retailers, like delivery platforms, etc., etc.
Absolutely. All right. Time to get closing comments now from both my panelists with the best way forward. Starting first with you, Mr. Dua.
Frank, I'll just add a couple of things to what Jayant mentioned about the ease of doing business. In addition to all that he's pointed out, I think 3 things which had come out from the World Bank's own, the last published report, as well as the commentaries which have come out subsequently. In addition to the commercial disputes, which is high up on the list, the other 2, and those were probably higher, one was contract enforcement machinery in India. That the foreign investors are very worried about contracts not getting enforced in India. Entered contracts and rescinding from some of them, others being kind of ignored altogether. That is something which worries them, and it worries people who finance them, saying that on their basis of their, say, power purchase agreement, in the case of power sector, if those PPAs are going to be questioned every now and then with change of government, etc., how do we fund the investment which is to take place in India? And the second one is winding up of the companies. It still takes far too long in India. If a company decides to move out for whatever reasons, though it doesn't wind up, it has to look for, what it does is in India, a very funny thing. It looks for transferring of the company with no assets, so that the winding up becomes the headache of the next guy. It sells off the assets, it strips the assets, but the company remains on paper, because otherwise the process of winding up through going through a judicial process, semi-judicial process, etc., is a long winded one. That was just to add to what is to the discussion on ease of doing business. To come back to today's main topic on Elon Musk and his creativity, I would say, yes, we do need to get big ticket investments, but all these investments have to be measured against the yardstick of utilitarian value to the host country. And as of now, in almost all functions, all criteria, parameters, this project probably doesn't pass muster. As we said, let's not brush him aside, because he is a serial entrepreneur, having moved from South Africa he's a South African by birth, etc. Somebody who moved to the US, became a naturalized citizen there now, and then he's now going beyond the Mother Earth into the space and other things. So he's a big guy. He might have something to worthwhile for India in the future. But we need not go beyond what the Prime Minister has stated, saying, let him choose. If he makes here, I will look at a reduction of duties, because then it's going to benefit the manufacturing taking place in India. But if it's benefiting my, neighbor across the Himalayas, I'm not for it. So I think it is something which is well grounded, and we should pursue our proposals with him as well as with others against these benchmarks.
And Mr. Das Gupta, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
I entirely agree with what Dr. Dua just mentioned. There is one thing which one needs to bear in mind, and that is the quality of investment. Elon Musk has not held out any promise or concrete proposal as to how much investment he is going to bring in. Because if it is going to be a screwdriver technology kind of setup, even in the modern era, it's not going to bring in much investment. And it is basically going to exploit the domestic captive market with a lower import duty. This will happen in other fields as well. And now that we have embarked upon Make in India, about the PLI schemes have been rolled out, our main emphasis is on creating our own capacities, building our own capacities, and providing employment to the large numbers of youth in the country. So whatever decision the government takes will be guided by these twin concerns. And just because it is a well-known name in the world and it is fashionable to be associated with Tesla and have Tesla cars running in your country, we need not make this compromise to allow it to come in at reduced duties and sell in the domestic market, especially when this concession is likely to be only for Tesla and not for other companies.
Right, absolutely. All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave to that. Thank you so much for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Well, what's coming out of this discussion is that Musk is hedging and testing waters. He's looking to get the best deal. India should not give in to Tesla's demands right now, as the company will not be adding any value at this time. If we agree to the demands of cutting import duties, we will be helping our adversary China in the long run, because all the equipment, everything that needs to be put together will be brought from places like China to India, assembled here, and then sold to us in the long run. We should not burn bridges with Tesla as well, as it is a major company with interests in several fields and could be of mutual benefit at a later stage. The states trying to woo Musk seem more of a publicity stunt than anything else and will not fructify. With that, it's time to go. But before I leave, let me once again remind you to like the video, subscribe, and share the content as well, so that more people get to know about Bharata First. And do subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive information. And how can I not tell you about Bharata First Knowledge Center, our big success story? It is your one-stop destination for all your competitive exams needs. We now have 26 amazing courses all put together to help you in your competitive exams and also make you better Bharatiyas. Live classes for the second phase will begin from next week. Do ensure that you register now and participate in the interactive sessions. Go to kc.bharatafirst.com for more details. Hundreds are reaping the benefits of the Knowledge Center. Don't be left behind and don't regret later. All this information along with some must-see recommendations are in the description of the video. Please go through it. That's it from me. See you again next time.